Coming up on Mountain News at 6, with Hurricane Helene fast approaching the Gulf Coast, we hear from a former WYMT meteorologist about how this storm could impact us here in the mountains. And we will bring the curtain down on the 5th annual Power Up the Pantry food drive with a live update from Hazard.
And we have rain pushing through eastern Kentucky still. We'll detail that coming up in a few minutes.
Dedicated to eastern and southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 6.
Hurricane Helene is on track to make landfall in Florida tonight before moving toward Kentucky. The storm will give us more rain and gusty winds through the weekend. Our first alert weather day continues, and meteorologist Eric Dean has the latest forecast. Eric.
All right, current time is now 6 o'clock. We are seeing that line of showers push through eastern Kentucky. If you're watching me right now in eastern Kentucky, you are seeing some rain, heavy rain in some places. Here's the latest with live pinpoint Doppler radar. We'll go ahead and pinpoint a couple of places just south of Jackson in Breathitt County, north of Hazard in northern Perry County. You can see some heavy rain being picked up near the Hardshell area at this time, and that's been the trend as we've gone through the past several hours. And then over at Manchester, we'll go ahead and pinpoint this storm right here. You can see we're seeing some heavy rain near the Manchester area as well. Take a look here at the past 3 hours. You can see as we start the clock, you can see that south to north approach, and this is going to be the general rule as we go throughout the next several hours, so something that we're going to monitor. Flood watch is in effect until 8 o'clock for the majority of the viewing area. Flood warning is in effect for Wise, Lee County in Virginia, as well as Claiborne County. Again, this goes into effect until 5 a.m. We'll time everything out hour by hour with Future View coming up in the first alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, Eric, thank you. Hurricane Helene will make landfall in the Big Bend area of Florida this evening, and the remnants look to arrive in Kentucky not long after that. Folks in the mountains are expected to see heavy rain and high winds. WYMT's Austin Hicks has some tips to stay safe.
Hurricane Helene is a Category 3 hurricane that is going to make landfall in Florida tonight and is projected to be in Kentucky by Friday. While the impact in Florida will be severe, folks in the mountain will not experience the full brunt of the hurricane. While we will not get the full impact from it, officials say folks should still be cautious.
The impacts won't be as great that far north, but still there's a flood watch out for Kentucky. There are wind alerts out for parts of Kentucky. So we could see a few inches of rain. We could see some gusty winds that far north, especially by Friday, pushing into the weekend.
Characteristically, hurricanes normally slow down once they reach landfall, but Helene is doing the opposite, which could cause a greater impact further inland.
It's making landfall in Florida this evening and is going to be on our doorstep by Friday morning, and that's even with crossing over very mountainous terrain of the eastern United States. And it's a rare system where we have this kind of speed associated with a hurricane making landfall.
Kentucky has seen increased rainfall this week. According to the National Weather Service, certain areas of eastern Kentucky have seen more than 4 inches of rain. With the heavy rainfall from Helene approaching, the concern of flash flooding is a possibility. Folks should know that the possible flooding is not comparable to the floods of 2022.
We're not going to see anything like that. That was 13 inches of rain or whatever it was in one night. We're not expecting 13 inches of rain in a small basin where you're seeing massive water rises.
Officials with the National Weather Service said folks should make sure to have a plan in place in case there is an emergency. For updates on Hurricane Helene, download the WYMT First Alert Weather app. In Jackson, Austin Hicks, WYMT Mountain News.
Now, former WYMT meteorologist Cameron Aaron, who left us earlier this year, now works for our sister station in Florida's capital city of Tallahassee, and this could be one of the strongest hurricanes that city has ever seen. Of course, our thoughts and prayers are with everyone down there. It's going to be a long night along the Gulf Coast of Florida. Power companies here in Kentucky are having to figure out plans due to the storm. This will have impacts very far inland and affect a lot of people. This creates big plans in terms of response. While many co-ops are staying in Kentucky to monitor the situation, Joe Arnold with Kentucky Electric Cooperative says 7 different co-ops are heading south to assist elsewhere.
Our co-ops in Kentucky have been paired up with co-ops in Georgia. So we have 4 co-ops that are currently either on the way or leaving soon to go to Georgia. And there are other co-ops who are, after the weather moves into here and they're able to see, make sure they have enough crews to take care of things here, they will also then probably send crews down.
With wind gusts over 50 miles an hour possible in our area, there needs to be enough people ready here for power outages. Daniel Lowry with Kentucky Utilities says as of now they are staying local. A huge event in southern Kentucky this weekend is expected to attract thousands of people despite the weather. The World Chicken Festival is off and running in London. First responders and vendors say they are prepared for bad and possibly dangerous weather. WYMT's Phil Pendleton has more on those preparations.
Staying covered inside as much as possible, even though the World Chicken Festival is a major outdoor event.
We're kind of measuring out right now to see how much space we have for an extra tent, just so we can put some stuff under that so people can stay dry.
There are 180 vendors set up all around the downtown area. There's also carnival rides and nightly concerts.
It's all about making sure your stuff's up off the street, make sure water can get through, because water's going to go where it wants, but you don't want your stuff to get wet.
All the vendors have been made aware that, everything has to be tied down and properly weighted.
A lot of the vendors and events are intense, out of the elements, but some people actually have to work outside in the weather and even for long periods of time. Gavin Smith says he could be out in the weather a lot during his 15-hour shift.
Jackets, ponchos, whatever we can to keep ourselves warm, keep ourselves dry.
If the weather gets really bad, an emergency plan can be activated.
And part of that is if the rain starts, individuals seek shelter in their cars, in buildings, and then once the coast is clear and that announcement has been made by our emergency team, then the festival will resume.
Got to have a real good canopy. You got to weight it down, so my weights on my canopy are 50-pound weights each.
Festival proceeds benefit about 50 nonprofit organizations, and people say that it's very important to keep it going for them. Laurel County, Phil Pendleton, WYMT Mountain News.
And tomorrow we'll have another crew at the World Chicken Festival as WYMT brings you coverage of the event. We'll have the Appalachian Wireless WYMT selfie stop there, and we encourage you to stop by despite the rain, take a photo and send them to us. To submit photos, you can scan the QR code on the Appalachian Wireless WYMT selfie stop photo frame or submit them at WYMT.com. The festival runs through Saturday. Governor Andy Beshear is calling for Letcher County Sheriff Mickey Steins to resign following that deadly shooting inside a courthouse that claimed the life of a district judge. Steins was arraigned yesterday in connection with the murder of District Judge Kevin Mullins. In a letter today, Governor Beshear asked that Steins step down by the end of tomorrow. He says it's important that Letcher County has a sheriff that can be out in the community keeping people safe.
And what I'm trying to do is to get Letcher County a sheriff that can be active as quickly as possible. That happens the fastest if the current sheriff resigns.
And if the sheriff does not resign by the end of the day tomorrow, the governor says the state will begin the process to remove him. A Wise County man has been sentenced for his involvement in a conspiracy to distribute meth linked to the murder of Virginia police officer Michael Chandler. Christopher Bates was sentenced to 6.5 years in federal prison. He is the 8th defendant to be convicted for his role in the conspiracy. The Moorhead community is mourning the loss of Troy Caldwell, a beloved tow truck driver who was killed on I-64 in Bath County yesterday evening. The 54-year-old died after being struck by a commercial vehicle while working near mile marker 124. The driver of that vehicle, Shadman Yuldashev of New York, has been arrested and faces charges of evidence tampering. Caldwell has been described as someone who left a profound impact on the community.
And Troy was just a nice guy, always willing to do anything that you ask him to do. He would go above and beyond on accident scenes. So it's a tough loss for everybody.
Officers say Yuldashev was watching YouTube at the time of the crash. This afternoon, Governor Andy Beshear made several new announcements regarding medical cannabis in the state. In April, the governor signed House Bill 829, which allowed the state to start issuing business licenses this year. Governor Beshear says the state received more than 5,000 applications. Only 48 licenses will be given out. The governor also says the state's lottery for cultivators and processors will be on October 28th. WYMT and Kentucky Power are partnering to help communities across the mountains once again this year for Power Up the Pantry. It's the 5th anniversary of the event, and it has just wrapped up at several locations. WYMT's Amelia Lee is live in Hazard and has an update from that location at Walmart. Amelia.
Kentucky Power has cleared out here in the Walmart parking lot. That's where I'm standing. They've cleared out and they've gotten all those donations today. And people really came out despite this wind and this rain that we're currently dealing with. Dedicated people came out to volunteer today and to make donations.
It's been rainy, but the donations have still been pouring in like the rain.
Folks have been bringing in all sorts of non-perishable, non-expired food items for this year's Power Up the Pantry. Those hosting the event say that since 2019, WYMT and Kentucky Power have helped collect more than 26,000 pounds of food and more than $143,000 in donations to help the people of Eastern Kentucky.
Even the terrible weather, they're trying their best to come out. But yeah, we've had an abundance today come out.
Although many canned goods were donated, some folks did not bring in food items, but instead, they are donating money to help support the cause.
It's a great feeling to help your community, people around the community. You know, we try and give back so much.
Folks with Kentucky Power say with every dollar given, that dollar can create 8 meals, which continues to help folks in the mountains who are dealing with food insecurity on a daily basis. And volunteers think the ongoing help will always be important.
We like to be a great community partner. You know, we want to show that we're not just providing electricity, that we are trying to be involved in our communities.
If you were not able to come out today for Power Up the Pantry, you can still make a donation to your local food pantry.
If you can afford it and it's in your heart, I think you should.
Now it's time to get into some numbers of what was actually collected today. This is all according to Kentucky Power. So starting off here in Hazard, 803 pounds of food were collected, as well as $246. Heading into Ashland, approximately 1,000 pounds of food. We don't know that money and amount yet. Heading over to Pikeville, we've got approximately 1,000 pounds of food and $135. Now there's also an online donation portal with a QR code that folks could scan as well. That comes into right now $870. And then the AEP Foundation donated $25,000. So a big turnout today here in Hazard. In Hazard, Amelia Lee, WYMT Mountain News.
All right, looks like we're already getting a little wind out there. Amelia, thank you very much. It sounds like, despite the weather, a very successful event. Once again, we thank everyone who made a donation today. And again, if you missed your chance to power up the pantry today, you can still always make a donation to your local food bank.
And we're seeing a copious amount of rain on live pinpoint Doppler radar, and we have a whole slew of advisories. We'll talk about that coming up in just a few minutes. Stay with us.